Hey, I'd be episode number 301, and we are live. Unless you're watching this on a replay, and we're
True.
not. What's going on,
Or if
Scott?
you're watching this 100 years from now, we won't be live.
Oh gosh, well, we could be, technology, things like that.
We'll be uploaded
Transplant our
into some
brains.
AI body.
Yeah, it's like what's that show? It was on Amazon Prime. It's the one where the guy has his brain downloaded into the computer. His girlfriend does it, and then she's in there, and
Yeah, I forget the name of that one.
yeah, I call it like download.
Yeah, I think that is that what it's called? Maybe.
Something like
I don't
that.
know.
I don't know.
Maybe upload, download.
Yeah.
Who knows? So how are you today?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right.
You're hunkering down for the massive devastation on its way with the tornadoes and everything?
Well, I got to go to the airport here in a little while and pick up some people, but
oh, that's right. They come in today.
Yeah.
Hopefully
So
they're in soon.
Now the flight's on time. I've been tracking the flight, so I know where they're at. They're doing about 12:30. It's funny though, is channel like 2 here in Detroit. It's like, oh, between like 11 and 2 is the worst. Channel 4 in Detroit saying, oh, 1 to 4 is the worst. It's just they don't
It's all over the place.
It's just it's not snow. It's just rain and thunder and lightning, maybe some hail.
Well, the big thing is it's going to be like a 30-degree temperature increase in within 2 hours. So that's where the bad weather is, that massive change.
Yeah.
But so hopefully it doesn't get too bad.
Yeah.
If it does, if you're in Michigan area, just keep an eye on your weather reports today.
Yeah. Upload. That's the name of the series. That's
Upload.
And that was funny. I think they've done
Robbie,
2 seasons.
Robbie Amell.
Let me see here. It sounds right. Yes, Robbie Amell plays the main guy, and then his girlfriend because he supposedly thought he was gonna die, so you only have so much time they can actually upload your brain, but when they do, they blow up your head, so you're gone at that point.
Yeah, there's no coming back.
Yeah. So it's a fun, interesting comedy, very dark comedy in some ways.
Yeah. So that's us in 100 years.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's gonna be a season 3 or not. So, but I'm hoping so because the first 2 seasons were funny. So who knows? They're up stuff. It's like today with Disney Plus. I watched The Mandalorian, which we'll talk about that next week. We're giving 0 spoilers on that one because there's a lot of cool stuff in that one. But then I also popped up, I was like, oh, Dewey Kamehameha, come on. I popped it up. I was like, okay, because I watched the first season. It's a cute little show.
What was it?
Doogie Kamehameha.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus. It's basically a new Doogie Howser it came out with when they first launched. And it's got Jason Lee, who played Bruce Lee back in the Bruce Lee story. He plays the dad. They have the 16-year-old girl playing their version of Doogie. And they reference the original Doogie Howser series. Like a couple people say, oh yeah, she's our own little Doogie Howser, so that's why we call her Doogie. And but her
her nickname is Doogie,
in
honor of
the series, yeah. So which Neil Patrick Harris has not been in this, but eventually, so I'm
sure they'll bring in a cameo at some point.
I don't know. They did something they've never done on Disney Plus. The series dropped on the 31st, and I didn't know it had. Well, it wasn't just one episode. They dropped the entire season. So I have a feeling that they just dropped it and it's a dump and bail. So this is probably the last season, just 2 seasons out of it. So it's an all right show. It's like the first episode I watched it. And, all these people standing around the beach, somebody yells shark. And of course, Doogie's the one that's going to save the girl on a jet ski, come back and then do the medical stuff. And I'm sitting there going, there's a guy standing there going, there's a shark out there. And it's his jet ski. It's like, okay, so only the 16-year-old girl can go save the kid. So,
of course,
so a few things like that. I mean, are a little far fetched, but the family aspect of stuff I like. It's kind of they're set in Hawaii, and I like Jason Lee. He's funny in this one. He kind of plays a goofball dad, and then they have the one son who's trying to figure out who he is by dressing differently every time you see him. So, but it's a kids show. So, it's nothing to get too worked up over or anything other side. I was like, oh, I'll just watch it here and there. So I was watching it when it would drop with The Mandalorian the first season.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I'll watch this and watch that, and then I can get out of bed. So, but yeah, so we're going to talk a little Mandalorian from last week. We're going to talk, Scott went and saw Dungeons and Dragons and survived.
Yep. Honor Among Thieves.
He survived the gelatinous cube.
Yeah, it's got through that. So I'll talk about that. We've got the Bad Batch finale.
Hmm.
I'm going to talk a little bit about a show I stumbled upon. It's a newer comedy on ABC called Not Dead Yet. Jill and I have been watching that. They're kind of mid-season right now. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. And I thought that was
I'll talk a little Yellow Jackets.
that's right. Yeah, Yellow.
So
So yeah,
so
what
we'll
to
get
talk about?
Well, hey, let's get started with some ad reads here. We got Loringer Family Chiropractic Center PC, located in Belleville, Michigan, and Dexter, Michigan. They take great pride in providing the finest chiropractic care to each and every patient, offering on-site digital X-rays, massage therapy. Which actually, I say massage therapy, and that's actually going to be leaving soon because they're going some new stuff here. So this will be revised eventually, but they still have that available right now for a limited time. You can still get massages, but they offer orthotics for foot levelers, young limb oils, aromatherapy, full line of vitamins, all in a family-oriented environment. Give a call 734-697-4244. Visit them at lawrenceandfamilychiropractic.com or visit them online here at Facebook. I talked to Dr. Anand just a little bit, and they're going to be, I told them they need to update their site here with different stuff. They're bringing in a nurse practitioner, and it's something new within chiropractic they can do here in the state of Michigan. So it's offering some different services within the rehab capabilities, besides just of getting adjusted and things like that, offering some type of rehabilitation to go along with care of people. So if you're hurt or injured, there's other options they can do all in house. So you don't have to go to several different places, like just a rehab place or to the hospital for physical therapy or stuff like that.
Oh, very good.
So definitely, once I have more information, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Now we also have Team Titans of Real Estate. Why? Because you matter. That's right. Even though Jill and I utilize the latest in tools and technology to maximize your home buying experience, we never forget at SCORE, it's a people business. This past week has been busy for us. We put a house up on the market. Last week when we did the show, I announced that there was a coming soon. It was a 10-acre property for $570,000. It went live on Friday. We had a lot of showings in a couple days. We had our open house, which was hugely successful, and multiple offers. And we ended up accepting an offer. So I think it was Sunday. So it was a very productive weekend. So now we're managing the process, taking it to the next phase where got to order title work and coordinate with the buyers. They've got inspections they're doing, all kinds of fun stuff. So anyways, Jill and I are here for you. I just posted the phone number. 586-232-5144 is our phone number, and we are here for you.
Awesome on that. So I was thinking a little side business here. Scott, I'll be sending an email through our Odd Musings for their StreamYard, because we love using this StreamYard thing here. How cool is this thing? We can do all kinds of neat stuff, titles, stuff like that. I like that we can add in our little sub headline under our name, so we have the websites there, so we have to try to have everything scrolling all the time.
Yep.
And things like that. So this has been a great addition to our show. So very cool.
For sure.
So what do you want to start off with?
Well, I got a quick little side story.
Okay.
So I had some interesting happenings this past week. So last week, I had 4 of my credit cards stolen.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know it. So I went to the gym last week. It was a Tuesday, so it was before our show last week. And long story short, I'll kind of start from the beginning here. When I was getting ready in the locker room, usually I just put my wallet right into my tote bag and into the locker. Well, for whatever reason, the wallet fell on the ground. So I pick it up, and one of my credit cards fell out. So I put it back in. So I know I had the credit card at that moment because I physically picked it up, put it in. Well, locker room floors are wet, nasty sometimes. So instead of me getting up now with my socks on and stepping on the floor, I decided I'd put the wallet right next to me,
Mm-hmm.
while I bent over and finished putting my shoes on. So then I went and put it up. So like 30 seconds, the wallet sitting right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
Put everything in the locker, go work out. About 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes, something like that, into my workout, I start getting text messages. Did you do this charge of $5,000 at the Apple Store? I'm like, no. Deny. Did you do this $3,000 charge at the Apple Store? And it was a different card. I'm like, that's weird. No. And then another, no. So I called the credit card company. I'm like, what's going on here? How is 3 different credit cards being used at the Apple Store? And I'm just thinking somebody must be trying to do something online because I just saw my credit cards,
Yeah.
And he said, well, maybe do you have like an Amazon account that maybe has all 3 cards in it? I'm like, oh, that's possible. So he's thinking maybe your Amazon got hacked. So I start researching and figuring out after that day goes by, and I had denied the charges. Come to find out, I was looking something up, and I was thinking it was an electronic hack. Then I noticed one of my cards was missing. Then I looked for my other cards, and all the cards that were getting notices were physically missing.
Oh.
So what I think happened was, because there were other people in the locker room behind me, I think when I put the wallet down, there were 4 cards total missing. Those are my top 4 cards. I think they reached in with their thumb and slid them out.
Really?
So they because I didn't the wallet was right here. So I think they like went like this, and because it was the top 4 cards.
Okay.
And then they went, and the Apple store, I later found out, was the Apple store right next door. This wasn't an online transaction. This was an in-person transaction.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, this is a physical theft of a card, not a hack. So I call the Clinton Township Police Department, because the gym is in Clinton Township and the store is Clinton Township.
Right.
So I call the Clinton Township Police, and I talk to them on the phone, tell them what happened. So they say, you have to physically come down to our station to file a report. Because what happened is that first charge of $5,700, the credit card company allowed to happen. The 2 other credit card companies denied the $3,300 charge.
Yeah.
So they actually got $5,700 worth of merchandise from the Apple store.
Ah.
So
which means they're probably on camera there.
exactly. And so anyways, I drive down to the police station, go talk to them to file my report per the conversation I had on the phone. And the guy's like, oh, I can't help you. I'm like, what are you talking about? They sold $5,700 worth of stuff. He's like, yeah, but do you know they stole the card at that location? I said, well, I know I had the card. It fell out of my wallet. I picked it up, put it back in my wallet, put the wallet next to me, it locked it up. 20 minutes later, I'm still at the same place. I'm getting notices that this is being used next door. Said it had to have been taken there. He goes, but did you see it?
Oh,
I go,
Jesus.
well, no, I didn't. I go, if I saw it, I probably would have jumped on the guy and kicked the crap out of him. So no, I didn't. And then you'd probably be yelling at me for doing that. And so anyways, he's like, well, we can't handle this. I go, why not? He goes, so what you're saying is you need us to open up an investigation to figure out who stole your card? I go, isn't that the point of an investigation? I go, do you only open up investigations you already know the results of? Like, this guy's being a total douche. So anyways, I was just like flabbergasted at this conversation. So I ended up because I didn't know that it was stolen there, I had to call where I reside, which is a different city. So I had to call that sheriff. They had to come down. They actually drove to my house and took a statement. And I had collected. My GPS shows what time I got to the gym. Oh, yeah, this was the other thing I told him. He goes, oh, so I have to investigate. I go, it's probably the world's easiest investigation. We have a timestamp, 2/13. The card was charged at Apple. It's probably on video. We know I arrived here's my GPS, 1:41 p.m. I arrived at the gym. Somewhere between 1:41 and 2:13, they went next door. They probably left immediately after getting my cards and went straight there. Like, this isn't rocket science.
Yeah.
Plus, at the gym, we have photo IDs. So if you go to Apple, get the video, you can probably then go to my gym, get a list of everybody. They were either just checking in at the same time as me, or they had checked in earlier and they were on their way out. They were, you're in the locker room usually at the beginning or end of your workout.
Yeah.
I go, so look at a 2-hour window, look at the photos. It will probably match the video. I go, this is probably the world's easiest investigation.
Yeah.
And they just didn't want anything to do with it. I'm just like, are you serious? Anyways, so I filed it with my city because I didn't know where it happened, and they're now they have an open investigation. So it's just frustrating. And then I ask him, I go, let's be honest. I go, are you just here to make me feel like you're doing something, or is something going to happen? And he kind of just like, "Ah." I'm like, really? I go, like, seriously? Like, I can give you the exact timeline. I think I know who did it at the gym. I can't prove it, but I think I know, and I can point them out, and you can probably see them on the video, so you wouldn't even have to come back to the gym.
Yeah, you'll probably see him at the gym in the next week or so, and he'll be having all kinds of new Apple, like a new Apple iPhone or
Oh yeah.
iPad.
Well, my theory is there's a group of teens. It's somebody who's too stupid to know if you steal a credit card, don't use it 20 minutes later next door.
Yeah,
It's, if you're smart, you sit on it for a day or two. That way, now had they waited 2 days, I would have had no idea when I lost the cards.
right.
But because of the series of events, it's like, okay, I know exactly where I lost the card.
Now, did you go to the Apple store at all?
The cop said they will handle that, which I doubt. They're probably going to do nothing.
Yeah. See, I would
It's
have
just
gone in and been like, okay, so I just got a notification that my card, which was stolen a half hour ago, was used here.
well, at the time, this is where, and I'll wrap this up. When I called from the gym, they wouldn't give me information because I'm working out, and they're like, "Well, what's the full credit card number?" I'm like, "I don't know the full credit card number off the top of my head. That's out in the locker." And they're like, "Yes, I did. I Everything's been already canceled and new card numbers." I'm
Yeah,
responding to Connie here. I did call all the companies and right away have everything shut down and stuff. But I got lost in my thought there, sidetracked. Anyways, it's just a joke. Like, I called the credit card company. I'm in the middle of my workout, and they're like, "Well, do you know the full credit card?" I'm like, "No, I don't know the full credit card number. I can tell you the last four. I can tell you my birthday. I can tell you my social. I can tell you everything else."
yeah,
And so, because I didn't know the full credit card number, they wouldn't talk to me. And so that's where he said, well, maybe it happened through your Amazon or something. Now, had he worked with me and looked it up like I wanted,
hmm
at that moment, I would have found out it's the one next the Clinton Township Apple store, and that the card was physically swiped. For me, it wasn't even in the realm of possibility it was physically swiped because I had just seen the cards.
yeah.
So I didn't realize somebody would have taken them out of my wallet while it's sitting right next to me, you know? So, anyways, it's just a pain.
Yeah.
But everything got shut down. Supposedly, the 5,700, I'm not going to be charged. They opened up a
Well,
fraud thing, so
I'll say
they're
it's an actual
investigating.
credit card, so they should you should be get those back. There's always those protections. So,
Well, supposedly,
but you
you
call
know.
within the time frame, like, hey, it just happened.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's still on my account.
Yeah,
It's, but they're investigating.
yeah,
Well, I did all the work for everyone. Don't call so in other words, don't call the cops when you need an investigation. Only call them once you've already solved the case,
yeah.
and then they'll help, I guess.
Yeah. That's one thing I always worried about,
Freaking
and
joke.
when I've gone to gyms, stuff like that is so I the thing I always do is when I'm going in is I always have my bag, and in my bag is I put my wallet in there before I even walk
Yep.
in the gym.
Yeah.
I don't keep it in my pants, and I worry about falling out, stuff like that.
Right.
And I'm always double checking around me, and a lot of times though
Mhm.
I just don't even take my wallet in. I lock it in the car, in
Yeah.
an area there. So
Yeah.
because
So, anyways,
I just
let's.
don't want to take that chance on even getting in the locker. I use my own lock. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Some guy be like, "Well, I work for a locksmith, so click, I get every single one."
Yeah. It's just, we have a society full of scumbags, and nobody respects personal property.
Well, yeah, and
You
obviously, if
know.
they were dropping, almost 10 grand over at the Apple store, they were buying some high dollar stuff.
Well,
You
yeah, and
know,
and that's the other part is, so these people are spending 5 grand, 8 grand really between the two purchases they were attempting. Nobody checks ID for that much money.
well, yeah, that's the whole thing. It's anymore. It's like, oh,
Like,
just give me your card. Thank you very much. You're all set.
I can understand when it's like $100,
Yeah.
but when somebody has $8,000, ask for ID. But yeah,
Well,
nobody
and that's the
cares
whole
anymore.
thing is if it's a younger person, I bet you anything they could say, "Oh, this is my dad or my stepdad or something like that. They gave me this card to go buy me a new computer," and so they, but usually Apple, they get your information because they fill it all in as they're selling it to you because they register everything with Apple.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the only
Yeah.
thing with Apple is they seem to, at least every time I've gone in, it's always like, oh yeah, well, we need your information before we can sell this to you, and we'll need your email address and all this other
Yeah.
stuff, and you can't just pay for it unless they had someone they knew there that just sold it to them
Well,
and bypass that stuff,
and that could be.
and that is definitely something probably happened. So, sorry that happened, but I know you'll get your
Yeah,
money back. It's just a pain
it's
in the
all
butt.
fine. It's just a pain.
Yep.
That's all. It's just a pain. But everything got canceled right away. Luckily, 3 of the 4 credit card companies had brains and stopped it. The 4th credit card company was an idiot. It approved it.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in sending me a text saying, "Did you make this purchase?" and then approve it? Like, I said no. Why did you approve it?
Yeah.
Like, what was the point of asking me then? The other ones, so evidently they sent me the text after they approved it. Whereas the other 2 sent the text before they approved it. So me saying no canceled the transaction up front.
Okay.
So, anyways,
What?
so that was my fun this last week, is dealing with all that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like
Luckily,
it most likely will happen is they will hand it off to a detective who one day will be bored, that will walk in and get the information. Okay, I need to see this or that, and or we need, check this out, and walk here and
yeah,
here, and
by
they'll
then
close it.
be like, oh, we delete those videos
Yep.
after a week.
Yeah, and usually they do. They usually don't keep them more than a short time.
Right. So
So
hopefully he went right there. And if they did, it should be it. Like I said, I printed off all the charge times for the different things, the location of where I was on my GPS, showing what time I got to the gym. I mean, I made a very narrow window for them, so it really is a very easy, simple thing.
yeah.
So, anyways,
All
on to
right.
fun stuff now.
Yeah, let's talk a little Bad Batch. We got a
Bad
two
Batch.
episode finale last week.
Yes,
So
quite the. That was episodes 15 and 16.
yeah. So this is it was interesting. Almost a little hardcore here. Uh, we get the return of Echo. It was Echo, right?
Echo came back.
Yeah.
Yep, he rejoined the group as Rex took care of some other missions there,
Hmm.
so he wasn't part of the group for that. But it was quite intense, these 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's setting up a lot. This was reminded me kind of in spirit, not in exact storytelling, of the Rebels season 2. This is the big turning point. This is what's gonna catalyst for the next 2 to 3 seasons, however long more of this goes on. Because there's a lot of changes that happen in this episode here. So
Yeah, reading an article here about these episodes, the voice actress Michelle Ang, who does the voice of Omega,
mhm.
says she was genuinely devastated when she read the script for these 2 episodes. She was blindsided by the plot. Um, Normally, I get the scripts about a week before the recording session, which is really plenty to read and internalize what's
Mhm.
going on. But I had no idea, not even an inkling, that we were going to. Are we talking spoilers?
Yeah, it's been a week.
Okay, that we are going to lose Tech, one of the
Yeah.
batch, and definitely, if anything, it felt like they were building Tech up to be a new primary relationship. So I was genuinely devastated and felt a little bit like it was a prank or something. I was really shocked. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So even it really was shocking. I wasn't expecting to go that route with Tech, but that's kind of, I think that's where kind of the genius of this was, where it kind of gave it more of a Game of Thrones ending for the character,
Mhm.
where all of a sudden things start going well, like in when they're leaving for this mission to find Crosshair. You find out the pirate girl likes him, Like she says, don't go running off with other pirates. He's like, nah, we won't. And he's like, no, I don't mean it that way. So
Yeah.
she's hinting she has feelings for him.
Yeah, and I
Um,
found that kind of interesting because the way they did, I was like, okay, what's going to happen here? Because
yeah.
it felt like a setup.
And they definitely really formed the emotional bond between Tech and Omega.
Hmm.
Uh, so like they really were building up his character and growing him. Even at the beginning of the season was him winning the pod race thing where he
Hmm.
was piloting it. So they really built him up all season. And so to end it the way they did, which in Star Wars rules here, we didn't see him die.
We
So
didn't. All we saw was broken goggles.
broken goggles.
So we don't know if he's actually alive or dead. I mean, they could still bring him back.
Yep.
It's and they did spend a lot of time with him on the season, so I felt that I was like, okay, they did a lot with him, so maybe that's kind of where they're going. They're like, we're going to give him a good season, and his sacrifice will, be heartbreaking, but it makes sense because he was definitely more involved.
So I have a
So,
theory I'm developing. This is kind of
mhm.
on the fly, but here's what I'm wondering because they are slowly bringing in the cloning storyline that ends up being for the Emperor
Yes,
in the sequel series. Could Tech be barely alive? They're gonna try to clone his body and then do an experiment on transferring his consciousness into the clone body because the Emperor needs to have a way to transfer his consciousness into a clone body that he's trying to do. So I'm wondering if they're going to use Tech as the experimental conscious transfer
that is
character.
a interesting theory. I would say no, and the only reason I say
Oh,
that
oh,
is
you dashed my dreams already.
think about the ending though. At the end, Omega with one of Hemlock's people with him, she reveals to Omega that she is also a clone.
Yes.
And I think right there is what they're looking at is between Omega and all these other female clones that are supposed to be all clones of Django. That's where they're going to come around with all that stuff. I think if Tech is to come back, I think he's going to come back and somewhere in a few episodes into the third season, and we'll find out that he did survive and was able to crawl his way out or whatever, and he lost his glasses along the way.
Could be.
Other than that, it's he may just be gone entirely. So,
Right.
um,
It definitely was like, well, that rail system that fell, he was
mhm,
like peak of the mountaintop height,
yeah,
and there was like nothing below. So I'm not sure what he would like shoot an extension cord to to swing, or
well,
not sure how that would happen.
we couldn't see through the fog, so who knows? He may have hit
Yeah,
trees that a couple of branches and was able to whatever with his.
some space whale happened to be
Yeah,
taken off, and he landed on
there you go. Yeah.
it.
So who knows? But
Yeah,
it was definitely a heartbreaking thing looking at it going, oh wow, they just killed one of the off because it's even with Crosshair, they haven't killed him off. They find Crosshair, and he's been
hmm,
sedated, and like a lot of the other clones, because they're basically decommissioning clones along the way. And as they
yeah,
keep saying through this season, especially in these last two episodes, the clones are Imperial property. So they are not people. They don't have rights. So they are
right,
treated as slaves. They have zero recognition as actual living people.
right,
So I think it's an interesting way of going about that storyline. I like that. I like how they're dealing with it. And then it makes sense when we find out, through Rebels, the clones that joined Rex that, as they were older, that joined the rebellion to fight, against, the Empire, because the Empire
yeah.
did not look at them as people, but as property.
One thing I've started to notice too, I'm going to pay more attention in the future, but I notice every time they shoot another clone or any Imperial officer whose face is shown, they stun.
Yes.
Whenever they shoot a stormtrooper, they use the kill shots. They use lasers instead of the stun. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a vendetta against the stormtroopers themselves.
Well, and I noticed that too, especially this last episode. It was a lot of stunning, but then there was some actual shooting.
Yeah, but it felt
Um,
like it was. But the stunning I noticed was even the Imperial officers. But
yeah.
the shooting was always when it. So that kind of fits. Even going back to George's original design of Star Wars, is
Hmm.
he made all the bad guys fully armored, so you wouldn't so for children, they would never fully know, like, are those people being killed? He wanted it kid friendly, so to speak,
Yeah.
and do it that way.
Except he would force choke the heck out of an officer. Yeah, you can see this.
Yeah, crack the neck and throw the body.
Yeah. No, I think it's their programming. It really builds on their programming. They can't hurt other clones, and they can't hurt other or the Imperial officers or any officer. It's just part of their programming.
Could be.
Um, Outside of the Order 66, which was just they could kill a Jedi. But when it comes to oppositional forces, which is how the Stormtroopers were viewed, because the Stormtroopers are not viewed as clones; they are a different military branch or military force. So they can kill them, but it's their programming forces them to to just stun officers and other clones because they can't activate the kill switch because of the programming.
But I agree to a point in that, didn't they remove their inhibitor chips? I thought they removed theirs.
They removed the chip that would force them to do the Order 66, which is an inhibitor chip, but they're still technically programmed. The programming is in their brain.
Okay.
They didn't draw from that chip for the constant programming. The inhibitor was so the Republic / Empire could control them by issuing those orders that would go against their programming. Like they couldn't kill a Jedi until the Order 66 went into effect, and that was caused by the inhibitor chip because theirs were faulty. It never inhibited in their brain, so they didn't get that. But previous information in their brains that would be brought in through the inhibitor are there. That's why even like Crosshair, he's things with him came in that they didn't get the rest of them. So
yeah. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this whole season. Really like the direction it went. I just, if you're a Star Wars fan and you're just not watching it because it's a cartoon, trust me, go back to the beginning of the animated Clone Wars. Watch that. Watch this, the Bad Batch season 1, 2. Watch the Rebel series. I'm telling you, it's really quality.
It's good storytelling.
It is. Filoni does a great job at telling the stories here. And he has a true love of Star Wars and what it is at its core.
Yeah, and a lot of what they've done in this season here, I think, is also stuff that's being resonated through The Mandalorian.
Yes.
I think I think a lot of stuff they're doing now is they're taking the stuff they had already set up through Rebels, which is what we'll see that come to a culmination in Ahsoka series. But it's really they're taking this information. The way to fix the disaster of the sequel films is they'll explain things out a little bit and then move around them. And I feel that's the way they're going. Because we're even seeing more Saw Gerrera in Bad Batch.
Oh yeah.
So they're setting up all that stuff, and not that we'll see Saw Gerrera post Jedi. Did we ever get a finale of whatever happened to Saw Gerrera?
Well, yeah, we did.
That's right. He did die in the Rogue One.
Right.
Yep. So, but even that stuff is, laid groundwork for the rebellion, for things like that, which I think will continue on after Jedi, which they can deal with and move around. And of course, if they, they're setting up in Mandalorian, we saw last week's episode. We're hearing talk more and more of warlords, Imperial warlords.
So there is, to make a connecting point to Mandalorian, though, there is a rumor going around, a theory, I should say, not rumor, that Omega becomes the armorer that we see in the Mandalorian. The armorer does use a New Zealand accent. The armorer's in her 40s. Omega would be in her 40s at that point. So, there are people, and Jango Fett's past is Mandalorian, Boba's past is Mandalorian. So there are theories out there that this may be Omega.
That's not a bad thing. There was the other one. It was I shared with you last week. Is she's a different villain
tied to Darth Maul's time as leader of the Mandalorians. Yeah. They have the little horns on their helmets, and the armor does. Which she could still be both. She could have been a Mandalorian at that point. Let's see. How would the timeline work? When did that happen? That's the hard part with Star Wars. You constantly have to go back to the timeline. Okay, when did that story occur? Well, Darth Maul is dead at this point in Bad Batch, right?
Still watching Luke, and Luke was probably at that point around was post the Kenobi series,
Right,
but
right.
pre Battle of Yavin.
So there is still time where they could tie it in where she becomes a Mandalorian during the time of Maul, becomes a disciple of Maul,
Mm-hmm.
and then becomes the armorer down the road. So it is theoretically possible. So time will tell.
Okay.
They're
Yes.
definitely building her up to be something. And Filoni is connected to both series.
Yeah.
And Filoni really likes to develop his characters to go long term. So I could see him doing this as an origin story
Mm-hmm.
for the armorer while concurrently developing the armorer's future that we're seeing in Mandalorian.
Yeah, and the thing is, I was reading. There's an article here, and of course, we knew this from when you watched the first season of Bad Batch. Is Omega is an unmodified clone of Jango Fett, which means she's the sister of Alpha, who's also known as Boba Fett. So she would be a
Oh,
direct relative of Boba Fett's.
and she'll age at normal speed,
Yes.
like
So
Boba Fett.
becoming the armorer would put her at the right age.
Yes.
But the thing with the armorer is, I think the armor pass. I think it's more going towards the Crimson Dawn, Darth Maul aspect than the Omega. But I think Omega. There was another one. There was another bounty hunter that was in some of the legends that people referenced Omega could become, and that of course would tie into the whole pirate aspect they had with the female pirate that they worked with this season.
Right.
So
I'm curious to see where it goes. Although if she is Omega, it would explain why she really needs the rule to not take the helmet off, because people might notice who she is.
That's true.
So very curious.
Yeah.
It's definitely leaving, it's leaving the kind of questions as a fan who loves the whole thing, the whole story arc. It's fun to speculate on these and then anticipate where they take it.
Yeah. So. Well, and that's been the whole thing, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see on that. And now the new thing is with these other female clones that we got introduced to who appeared older. They're probably not unmodified. They probably have some modification, but how are they directly related to Omega and Boba Fett versus are they just batches of clones, but they've done a female aspect there, are working on that too. Right.
Well, with the age difference between Omega and this, what is her name? Alpha? Is that what it was?
No, Alpha was Boba Fett.
Oh, okay. So the sister who's the scientist, she could be twice her age, so she could be aging double the speed. It could have been they were created at the same time, but Omega's unmodified, so she looks younger. And the other one is modified, so she's double the age because of the aging process.
Right, and that's what I was thinking. It's like, okay, so do we have this sister, and it's like, how many more are there now?
Right.
So
it'll be the seventh sister instead of the Inquisitors. It's the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff. I'm excited for season 3. See where that goes. Do we have anything else Star Wars wise? What's next? Do you know? Because we got Mandalorian. That's what coming today. 3 episodes left coming.
Yeah, today? 2 this week's and then 2 more weeks, and then Ahsoka is the next series. Probably the next series I'm looking forward to, I should say, is Ahsoka.
Yeah,
and then they do have the High Acolyte.
The Acolyte. Yeah.
I'll probably check it out, but it's part of the High Republic stuff, and I've not liked anything I saw.
Yeah, that's the Kathleen Kennedy's.
And I think this is only coming out because of the fact that it was pretty much done.
Right.
So I think that's the only reason we're going to see that. And reading the premise of it, it sounds like it's just a mystery show where they're a Jedi and her trainee, both female, are hunting someone, kind of a detective type story. So,
right. Well,
let's see here.
I'm excited to see what comes out. Yeah, Ahsoka. Here we go. Let's see. Visions, Volume 2, May 4th. This was released October of 2022. So I don't know if any of these changed,
Yeah, because they're
but it
changing
says
a
Star
lot of
Wars
that stuff.
Vision.
Yeah.
I know it's Young Jedi Adventures animated TV series. I didn't know about that one, so I don't know if
Yeah.
that says May 4th. Don't know if that's still happening.
Let's see here. This was
Oh,
stated.
Skeleton Crew. That's right.
Yeah, well, that one I thought was getting held back.
Bumped. Right?
So,
Yeah, I think that got pushed back. Backlight.
okay. So, right now, according to this article from just a couple weeks ago, it says 2024 for the Acolyte. It's confirmed. Bob Iger confirmed it.
Okay.
So, I have a feeling it's because it says it looks brilliant and stuff like that. We'll see. You may be like, well, it looks good enough. Let's finish it and get it out there. Andor. We get Andor season 2. Probably won't premiere until sometime next year. Hopefully early in the year, not later in the year, because they're filming that as of now, I believe. Yeah, Skeleton Crew is set to come up as well, and then they are working on the next season of Mandalorian. Favreau's been writing that, or it's already written, I think. And then, but of course, we have a celebration coming up,
Isn't that like
April
now?
7th through the 10th.
Yeah.
So this coming weekend. So there's going to be a lot of, I would assume there's going to be a lot of stuff dropping information
Announcements.
there. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I'm
and
already seeing my posts filled with people who are flying out there, and they're posting that they're over there now and they're getting ready.
it's
So
overseas, right?
yeah, it's in London, I think.
Okay.
Think it's in London.
Yeah, and they're bringing a lot of the voice actors, a lot of actors like
Yeah.
Giancarlo Esposito is going to be there. Young Princess Leia is going to be there.
So for the people who don't know what about Star Wars Celebration, this is like the Super Bowl of Star Wars every year, where this is where they make all of their grand announcements, their grand presentations, their trailer reveals. So we'll probably have some new trailers coming out, and we'll get information from the panels and different things like that.
Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting. So we should see stuff popping up all weekend long. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's over in London, so it starts on the 7th. So 2 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then so yeah, it's gonna be interesting because it sounds like they have a lot of cast people coming out. There's rumors that the entire cast of Andor will be there. So.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I believe they are filming it there in London, or have filmed it in London. So,
Well, that makes it convenient.
so that's if they're still there filming. So,
Yeah.
because I don't know where in the process they are of current filming in that. So, it'd be nice, and I'm hoping maybe we'll get some real announcements on what the next steps are going to be within the Star Wars universe. I mean, like I said, there definitely should be another season of Mandalorian. There's rumors they may do another book of Boba Fett. Still rumors. Haven't heard any confirmations on that. And if they do, I think it would go back to Boba Fett being a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
So, and that would be I think going back to what the people thought the original premise of the Mandalorian was the bounty of the week, how it started. But then there's a grander story that Filoni and Favreau want to tell.
I have a feeling
we could be good.
Yeah, my gut tells me Boba Fett story will carry forward the story of the Mandalorians forming, like with Bo-Katan and all of them, and the Darksaber, and maybe him doing kind of working on the outskirts as a mercenary or whatever, doing his thing. But who knows?
I don't think so. I thought there was talk of the Mandalorian as a name going away, and them coming out with just Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Of course, it's
no, but what I mean is like the Marvel movies, for instance.
Yeah.
Just because it's a Captain America movie, you still had all these different characters from all the other movies, and the story flows through these things. So, like, even if Boba Fett doesn't get a title series, it doesn't mean he won't be showing up in other series or whatever.
Right?
Like,
no,
these storylines flow through.
What I'm thinking is that the Mandalorian series itself would be the main Mandalorian story for the
that they'll get their own story,
and then Boba will be doing other stuff, and and then we'll see crossings here and there, but it'll be his own thing, and we'll tie into a different aspect. And I can see him going more into dealing with the types of people like we saw last week. Last week's Mandalorian, they took on the pirate.
Yeah, that's how people want to see Boba Fett.
Yeah,
that's really what we want to see. We don't want to see him running some city trying to negotiate with these teenage junkie speeder bike gangs. Like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
I think it's like a little bit talking about last week's episode of Mandalorian is they we get back to the planet where Grief's been, and we find out it's been a couple years, and we found out earlier. But now the pirates have come. That they got that Din Djarin helped get rid of. The little group there. Well, they've come back with their starship,
Mhm.
the big one. It's the pirate captain Gorian Shard, and he's
Who
there to
looks
take
like a
over.
Pirates of the Caribbean villain.
Oh yeah, he's straight up Davy Jones.
Right.
Or whatever. And he looked just like him, but it was
He
I
just
liked
had
it.
seaweed instead of tentacles.
Yeah. So it was yeah, I
It was
liked
a
it.
fun episode,
It was
though.
a fun episode. I liked the character. He gets defeated. I liked the way they defeated him.
Mhm.
He launched all his ships. You got Bo-Katan, and you got Din going after him, and then they separate. So we got a lot of cool space battle stuff going on, fighter ships, and we got a little Beggars Canyon action style
Yep.
going on, stuff like that.
Yep.
And then they bring in the rest of the Mandalorians. They go and and bring them in, and they help fight off the rest of the pirates in town. And the reason is then they get their own tract of land just outside of town, so they'll actually have their own place. And this,
Yeah.
of course, is prior to uh, this week's episode, because at the end, Bo-Katan's going off to find more Mandalorians.
So real quick before we wrap up the Mandalorian too,
Mm-hmm.
last week was the big reveal of the flashback sequence with Grogu and the new Jedi that was revealed.
Yes. Yes. We had they showed the Jedi who we've seen before. He hosted the Jedi Temple game show that was on for a little while. And that was the guy that did Jar Jar Binks.
Ahmed Best.
Yep.
Yep.
So we got to see him as an actual Jedi
Yep.
in that show. Let me see if I can find this.
So
here.
here's something that's interesting.
Here we go. Jedi Temple Challenge. That was the show he hosted as
Yeah.
this Jedi.
So Lucasfilm kind of gave him a redemptive character because he got, he did go through hell as Jar Jar, unfortunately, and stuff. But I did see him do a post this week where he was talking about all the fans and their theory. Someone had asked him, was Jar Jar supposed to be a Sith Lord? And his answer was, that's a question you have to ask George Lucas himself. He goes, but what I will say is I appreciate that fans have looked past the surface to see the subtleties of what I made sure to put into the performance. So implying there was another intention there for down the road. Yeah. So, and he said a lot of his technique, his acting for Jar Jar came from studying Jackie Chan's drunken, what they call it, drunk food, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I forget what they call that style, but your fluid motions are based upon acting like you're drunk. And he said that's what was incorporated into Jar Jar's action scenes. So
yeah, it's Drunken Fist.
Drunken Fist, that's it. So just a little fuel to the Darth Jar Jar theories that are out there.
Well, and that would have been, they did set him up to be the fall guy for everything. He put everything in motion by voting in place of stuff and that. But no, I don't know if he was going to be a full on Sith Lord or actually the mastermind behind everything. But I think he would have been manipulated enough by the Emperor to have been a little more evil.
Right.
So,
well, there you go.
Yeah,
we got to move on. We got only 10 minutes left.
Yes. So Bad Batch is done for the year. We covered that Mandalorian last week. This week's episode, don't go online if you haven't seen it yet. Watch it before you go on the internet. Spoilers are hitting everywhere, and there's a lot of cool little things in this one. So
a lot of cameos to watch for.
Yep. So and then you went and saw Dungeons and Dragons. So you want to give your quick review?
Yeah. So Dungeons and Dragons. Let me just pop this up really quick. So according to Rotten Tomatoes, critic score is 91%, audience score is 94%. I think they must be polling people who have been hanging out with Snoop Dogg and smoking a lot of something. The movie was, on the surface, it was okay. It wasn't a horrible thing, but from a story structure standpoint, it sucked. It was just, you have 7 main characters in this film they're introducing. And so it just feels like a series of origin stories. And then this person, and you get 8 minutes of backstory on that person. And then they go to the next person, 8 backstory minutes on that person. Well, you add it up, all of a sudden 45 minutes to an hour of the movie is just simply telling all of these little backstories instead of forming an actual connection to the characters. And I think the story they had would have been great if this was either a 8-10 episode streaming series
Hmm.
or a trilogy of movies. I think it would have worked. But the way it went, you don't really form an emotional attachment to anyone. It just feels like it's a lot of eye candy for Dungeons and Dragons fans. You're excited at the cameos, the Easter eggs. It's like, ooh, there's the animated Dungeons and Dragons team there. Like they're making a live action appearance. Yay. Oh, there's the gelatinous cube. Yay. It's so it I feel like there was a lot of fan service that was smartly intermixed through the whole thing. And I think that's where a lot of people who really are dying for a good Dungeons and Dragons movie, I think they're latching onto those because the story itself was just very blah. Of course, true Hollywood formula fashion. Of course, the toughest person on the team is a female. I'm sorry, Michelle Rodriguez. I'm tired of her. She plays the same character in everything she does. Chris Pine, same character in everything he does. It's just, it just, it was okay. But personally, I would have preferred if I saw this movie for free. I'd wait for it on TV maybe.
Yeah.
So I could, this might be a good movie to have on in the background while I draw.
The thing about I haven't seen this yet, and Scott and I talked about it. He told me what was going on with just because I don't have any plans to go see it because I didn't like the trailers I've seen. The thing that got me though was it started 3 weeks before it come out.
Yeah.
Is constant audience scores, this score, it's the highest rated movie, it's gonna be the best movie of the year, it's this and that. And they were so overhyping it. I was going, every time they do this, I was saying to myself, the movie sucks.
Yeah.
And what it is they're just trying to get it to, we want to do another one, but we know it sucks and it's just okay. The story's lacking but
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool stuff in it. I'm sorry, and I get tired of people, but it's got great graphics. I don't care about graphics. Yeah, the Dungeons and Dragon film that came out around 2000, 2001, people panned that one. Oh, it was so cheesy. It was a low budget movie. They didn't have the money to put in like great special effects, but it felt more like a real Dungeons and Dragon adventure than what I'm seeing in this one, just in the
Yeah.
previews. This one looks like it's
Yeah.
more of like, hey, here's this character, and he's Chris Pine, and he's going to be a smartass the whole time.
Yeah.
And then we've got the other characters here, and here's Michelle Rodriguez playing herself, dressed up as a Dungeons and Dragon character.
Right. And there definitely was elements of this movie that I think they had the basis of something that could have been better.
Mhm.
But this goes back to the studio. They need to understand what they have. What story are you trying to tell? If you're not sure if you want to turn this into a big franchise and you're only going to do a one movie thing, then do a storyline that fits in one movie.
Yeah.
Don't take something that really is like a storyline that needs time to develop, make your audience connect to the characters. Don't do something like that then in a one movie thing, because that's going to take a trilogy. That's going to take a TV series where you got 8 hours to tell the story. So don't condense it down to a 2-hour movie. That just then make it pure action, a fun action flick that goes through and you're done.
I think I mentioned this, Scott. We were talking about yesterday on the phone. I said best way to do an initial Dungeons and Dragons, if you want to introduce some characters, in my opinion, is you basically do a Reservoir Dogs. You have all the characters meet up at the beginning.
Yep.
You get a quick introduction. You do a little banter between them, and then the adventure happens, and then they're off on the adventure.
Right.
I mean, the thing with Reservoir Dogs is, the opening really, I mean, the whole movie was good, but the opening was the best part. You get all the characters that most of them don't make it, so they're dead by the time they get to this last part. But you get to learn who these characters are a little bit in between different stuff. You learn that Mr. Brown's kind of a jerk. He's dead by the time we get to the main heart of the story, but you find out he talks about Madonna and what like a virgin means, and that she's never had someone that big since she was a virgin. Mr. Pink, I don't tip. Things like that. It was a little quick. So they have these guys show up, and then you can create these little bits within there that say give their characters, and as they go on the adventure, it starts coming out.
Right.
And the backstory, it sounds like the whole reason for this whole quest, I thought was a little convoluted. It should have been more of, they should have been a hired group, a band come together, say, hey, I learned about this thing, let's go get it. And it's not because of any backstory, it's because that's just the adventure they're going on. And that's what Dungeons and Dragons usually is.
Right. So anyways, if you want to see it, go see it. I mean, I am seeing a lot of people saying how much they like it, but
yeah, I'll probably watch it when it hits one of the streamings. So
All
Now I
right, two
did
more
tell
things to cover.
real
Go
quick,
ahead.
I'm not going to get too deep into Yellow
Yeah.
Jackets. The second season started a couple weeks ago. I just got into it this past week. 10 episodes for the first season, 2 episodes available now for the second season. If you have Showtime, you can watch it there. It's on demand, things like that. Um, the best way to describe this story, it's a little like the movie Alive about the soccer team that crashed in the Andes, and this is a female soccer team, and they end up eating the dead because they needed to survive because they're in the middle of nowhere. Well, this one they're in the middle of like the Rockies. Don't know exactly where because they've not pinpointed that at least at this point in the series, but they're at a point where they haven't been found yet. But there's some things that happen in the first few episodes that really set to where they can't find the black box. That gets explained pretty much in a quick scene. You see what happens there. And the scene flips between the crash and then 25 years later for some of the survivors that we were meeting along the way. And the main ones, like played by Melanie Linsky, who was in the 2 episodes of Kansas City stuff for The Last of Us. She's really good in this. And then Christina Ricci plays Misty in the as an adult, and then the younger one is Samantha Hanratty, which people would know from Showtime's Shameless. She was on for a couple seasons there, playing the youngest son's girlfriend for a little bit, who was a little obsessive,
Yeah.
and that. Acting, I think, is really good. It's some stuff you expect to see anymore in series and shows, but they're dealing with certain issues, and the fact that you find out early on they're there for 19 months in these woods before they get rescued. So there's a lot that happens, and basically a lot that goes into like the whole Lord of the Flies / Alive aspect. And
Cool.
that's stuff you can figure out right away at the beginning too. So that's not really spoilers on any of the main series, but I recommend it. Check it out. It's definitely not for everybody. It's different, but the 90s stuff set in the 90s, you got a little feel of that. Shows them prior to the crash at times, and then shows them what's going on in the crash. And then of course the future stuff ties into what they're happened in the past that none of them talk about, and nobody outside of the group that came back really knows what happened because they all decided not to tell anybody. But there's some things going on with some of the people as they came back.
Nice.
So it's good. So I would check it out.
All right. And then the last thing to cover is this little show here. It's a new comedy series on ABC called Not Dead Yet. They've had a really good beginning launch. They had more than 10 million viewers over the 5 weeks of multi-platform viewing. We're one of those multi-platform viewers. We saw it on, I think, Hulu. It's either Hulu or Paramount Plus. I forget which. But Paramount Plus handles
I was just about to
ABC.
check. I was just about to check Hulu because Hulu
Yeah.
handles ABC because Hulu
Oh, okay.
is primarily owned by Disney.
Oh, there you go. So it was probably Hulu. I saw it then. But basically, the premise: if you like just simple comedy, episodic comedy shows, sitcoms, it's a fun one. If you like something like the show New Girl with Zoe Deschanel, it's kind of along those lines. That kind of a feel of comedy. You've got actually the best friend of Zoe, aka Jessie, in New Girl. The actress who played Cece is in this series here. I think they do a good job. It's a fun, if you just want mindless comedy to tune in and just have a laugh. Each episode focuses on this main character here, who's played by Gina Rodriguez. She plays an aspiring writer / journalist, and she works for a newspaper company. She gets assigned to the obituary section. So whenever she has a new obituary assigned to her, the ghost of that dead person appears to her to tell their story to her. And it's kind of a fun interaction the way they do it. And so all the side characters also are interesting, fun characters, just like in New Girl. It's this kind of a
Well,
five, six
she was
main
also
people.
in and I didn't watch the show, but I recognized her. I was like, she's from Jane the Virgin,
Oh,
which
that's
ran for
right.
several years on
Yes.
I think ABC and all that. So,
Yep.
but
Yeah,
she's been
so
around
it's a
for a
lot of
long. She's
fun.
been around for a while. I'll pull up her credits. Now she's
Yeah.
definitely got a lot of credits on her name and
Yeah.
done a few things. But yeah, in the last like 15 years, where she really got known more of probably because of Jane the Virgin.
Yeah. So the ensemble characters are fun. The storylines is, it's a fun little thing. They got some quirkiness going on and stuff. But
cool.
So if you want something just fun and lighthearted, check it out.
Yeah, I just added it to my Hulu list, so I know they'll go there and check it out. I think there's 7 episodes available now. So
yeah, it comes. I don't know if they're on episodes haven't come out in a couple weeks, so I don't know if they're like at the mid-season break or something. I don't
Yeah, we're
know.
in this point now where we're getting a lot of gaps between episodes because they're getting ready for it used to be February and then May were the times that they do it for because of ad sales. That's when they would check the ratings for how
Okay.
much they could charge for ad sales for the next year for those series and things like that. So I know Ghosts just had an episode and probably won't be back for a couple weeks. But once Ghosts wraps up, we'll definitely talk about this season on next. We're both watching that.
I
So
hate when they do that though, because like for Ghost, for instance, it's like
mhm.
you have a good chunk of shows you watch. Then like there's a few weeks. Then they have one episode. Then a couple weeks. Then one episode. Then a month off. And then it's like when is it back on? Just give it to me all in a chunk. Then if you
You know,
can't,
if you remember, we'll wrap up the show here. Lost. Remember, Lost got complained about that during the first season a
yeah,
lot because there was a lot of gaps. So the second year they came back and said, "We're going to do 10 weeks straight here. You're going to get 3 months off." And they've done that with a lot of series since then.
yeah,
And then we're going to come back. Here's the they call it now the winter premiere, and we're going to run straight through for that. And it's mainly for those shows that have an ongoing storyline like that. They
right,
started doing that with like, here's this. But those that are basically the episode of the week, it doesn't matter they put the gaps in there now just to space
yeah.
them out.
But it's hard
Um,
to plan, like because it's like you're like all excited to watch it. You go put it on. It's like, oh, no new episode again. And it's like, come on, man. I can't. At some point, I'm just gonna move on and forget.
well, and that's where I think a lot of the streaming has helped a lot of that too.
Yeah.
You
So
miss. It's not like back in the day where we had to plan and watch and get the TV guide out and go and highlight. Okay, here's the new episodes, and we got to plan to be home at Tuesday at 7 o'clock so we can make sure
right.
that we're ready to watch Happy Days at 8. Because if we don't see it, we don't get to see it. And Fonzie's jumping the shark. So, but yeah, I think it's. I personally like when they're like straight through, but at the same time, it's kind of just the way they go. So, um, but it looks like for Ghosts, we were talking about this yesterday a little bit, and then we'll end the show here. Last week's episode was called Alberto's Descendant. That's the most recent one that aired. The next one's gonna be April
Episode 18.
13th. Yeah, April 13th gets one, April 27th. So there's 2 weeks apart there, and then the last two episodes are the first 2 weeks in May. So it's
Okay.
22 episodes for this season. So the reason they're doing that is they're spacing them out so they can get a couple episodes into May, and they have to have the gap in there.
Yeah.
And this all goes back to the old TV network, U.S. network standards of, they needed to have stuff airing in November, February, and May. They call them sweeps months. And that's when they would figure out the advertising revenue for those channels
Right.
and for the episodes. And they still kind of have to do that because they are still paid like that. So,
Yeah. If you haven't checked out Ghosts, we haven't really talked much about it, but it's a funny. That's another one. If you just want a fun show that you can turn your mind off and have a laugh, fun characters, fun ensemble cast, and
well, you
not
can go back.
everything has to be a deep, serious storyline.
And you can go back to last August, our episodes after San Diego Comic Con, because I did see the panel in San Diego last
Right.
year, and I did talk about that. So I definitely, I love the show. It's one of the best comedies out there now because a lot of the comedies anymore all feel like they're just trying to be Office clones, and I don't find those funny at all. Or this
Yeah.
one is just, hey, here's the episode of the week. Here's what's going on. We got these great characters, and this week we're going to delve more into this particular character here with their backstory and the situations that happen. So I found it much more entertaining than a lot of the other half-hour comedies have been out in the last 15 years, really. So
Yeah, I agree.
So, all right. Hey, join us next week. We'll cover this week's Mandalorian, some other fun stuff, and who knows? We'll get to tell you how bad the storms were.
Yeah. It's
All
looking
right.
dark outside here.
I see that. So we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.